All right, let me get rid of stop licking, puppy. All right.
No.
So,
Right.
oh, sorry, that's my cross stitch. Let's
Yeah.
get the slides up. All right, so status sheet and reappointment. For most of you, this is going to be old hat. For some of you, this is brand new. So oopsie doodles. I do just want to go over this with everybody. If you have any questions, the status sheet is very, very simple, but I just want to kind of connect what the status sheet, why we need it, how it all works, how reappointment's going to flow from here. So the status sheet is a vital cog in the reappointment and licensing wheel. The information that we gather from this sheet is used to prepare all reappointment and change of program contracts, promote change programs, or terminate residents and fellows in all the different systems. This aids with limited license renewals and to follow up on full license applications. Before I get too far, limited license and full license renewals, applications, all of that is going to change completely. Deb Rollo has been working with the board over the past several months, along with coordinators at other Massachusetts institutions. They're going live soon. We're hoping within like the next week or so with their online application system. So there's no more paper applications. There's going to be a whole different way of doing it, but Deb Rollo is going to have all of that information for you. Should have it at the next meeting in January. We're still just waiting on the board to give us the final okay and have all the instructions and stuff. So sit tight on that one for a bit. So the status sheet is a requirement for all programs, whether you're accredited or not. This is for every single GME trainee. So the status sheet is due January 13th. It's a Google Doc. It seemed to work out pretty well last year, so we're going to keep going with that. There is a tab at the bottom for each department. If you have multiple fellowships, like Dave does all the neuro fellowships, all of the neuro fellowships are on just the one tab that says neuro fellowships. All programs are in alphabetical order, starting with fellowships, then with residencies. There's a couple little arrows that you can scroll between the tabs. Only update information for your own program. If somebody's transferring from, one residency into your fellowship, let that residency handle it. They'll take care of saying that they're a change of program. I've included all of the dates for any LOAs that we've recorded so far this year and projected into the future, depending on when a trainee renews their limited license, depends on, which LOAs need to be recorded. LOAs are only reportable to the board since their last time that they renewed. So if they took an LOA 2 years ago, they don't need to disclose that again because the board already knows about that. Make sure you double check the dates of the LOAs. Make sure that that matches up with what you have in your record keeping. This is all based off of what I pulled out of MedHub, and I cross-checked it against all of my reporting. So if there's any, question about that, reach out to me and we can figure that one out. Any LOAs that include the use of over 5 sick days are reportable to the board. If any information included on this spreadsheet is inaccurate or missing, please make the necessary corrections and highlight that cell in yellow so I know that you changed that data. If you have any additional comments on a trainee, add a column at the end of the row for that trainee, and I'll see that when I pull. So I'm just going to kind of walk through the status sheet I'm more of a visual learner myself. So the very first tab you come to is the instructions. It's everything that I'm going to go over today. If you see down at the bottom here, this tab is in red. That means that spreadsheet is empty. If that one is in yellow, I can see that you've started filling it out and you're working on it. Green tab means that I have locked to the sheet. And I will do that to all sheets after the 13th. If you are all set with your status sheet, shoot me a message, let me know I'm done. All cardio fellowships are done. Awesome. I will turn that to green, lock it, so that way no changes can be made. So let's look at, so here's the anesthesia critical care. You'll see a lot of it's already filled out for you, what their current level is, what kind of license they're on. You only need to fill out these boxes here if someone's on a limited and plans to apply for a full, because we need to follow up with those folks, make sure that we get their application, their license wallet card, follow up with them on DEAs and stuff like that. So that's just for our own tracking. Here's where you'll see if there's a leave of absence. There's the current contract start date, then the end contract date. Will this person be a new chief resident? Now, I know a lot of you don't have chief resident appointed until, maybe mid-spring. As soon as you do that, you gotta let me know, because then we need to factor that into who's getting paid, our chief resident lists. So just make sure you let us know as soon as you can. Some chiefs, some programs have their chiefs have an admin account in MedHub. Let me know if they need that. So that way I can create those starting in the new academic year. Let me know if they're going to be reappointed or not. This is a one-year program, so these folks aren't going to renew. Reappoint. If they're going to be a different functional level, if they're going to be on a different stipend level, if they have an off-cycle promotion date that if this is empty, that means we do not know about any off-cycle promotion dates. So if anybody, if there's a CCC meeting or something like that, somebody needs to extend or something, put that in there so that way we'll know about it. Who's graduating, if they're going to be changing programs. If they are changing programs, please make sure you say yes and to what program. I did put this in for several people that we already found out through the matches that just happened recently. But if you find out that somebody's going to be changing from a residency to a fellowship, please make sure that's in there. Again, if they need to extend, if they're going to be staying on as faculty. Again, I know this is something that we don't always know right up front, and we might not know until later in the spring. As soon as you find out somebody's staying on as faculty, please let me know, because there's a certain termination process that has to happen for people that are staying on. So that way, all of their Epic or email access isn't completely terminated and they have to have a new profile created. Also, I'm able to roll over their MedHub accounts into faculty accounts. So that way you don't have to create a new one. So just make sure you're checking in on that. And then the timekeeper, if the timekeeper is changing, if what we have listed is incorrect, let us know, because we need to keep that up to date as well. So that's everything there. And like I said, down here, there's just these little arrows that you can scroll between all the different programs. It goes all through all the fellowships, and then it'll start with the residencies. If you have any particular questions about how to fill something out, obviously just reach out to me, let me know. So I'm just going to do a quick little pause there. Any questions on the status sheet itself?
Yes. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
On the new chief role, does that only pertain to the residents, not the fellows, or like do the PGY7s become new chiefs?
That's program by program. I don't think I've ever heard of fellows becoming chiefs. So
Okay.
I would check with the program, because I know we only provide stipends to certain programs. So check with your PD on that one. I don't think I've ever heard of a fellow becoming a chief, though.
Okay.
I think that there's a few larger fellowships where that, so you can have a designated chief funded by GME when your program has 10 trainees or more.
That's what it is.
So like say cardiology, they may have a chief fellow, but very few programs would fall into that. Like for yours, Frankie, they're small. So there wouldn't be a chief funded by GME, and it would have to be funded by the department. So
thank you. Another quick question. The admin account, that's the first time I hear of it. Is that only for residents as well?
That's only for chiefs. Sometimes like some programs have their chiefs have an admin account so they can do scheduling or they can do conferences, things like that, that only like an admin account would allow them to have. Like I think I do that for internal medicine and maybe surgery. I forget who else. I have a list. But again, that's just if you have a chief and you want them to be able to have administrative access to MedHub, let me know and I can turn on an admin account for them and limit their access to just, you know, the specific parameters that you want them to be able to use.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else,
Last
Frankie?
one.
Sure.
Last one. And on the graduate, if they're graduating and leaving UMass, and if I have a fellow who's graduating, but they're not leaving UMass, do I leave that part empty and put on the part that says they're staying as faculty, and fill that part out?
Hold on 1 second. So you mean so graduate and leave UMass. So they're graduating but staying on as and they're staying on as faculty.
Yeah.
So you would say, hold on 1 second, I can't see. No, that question is asked very weirdly. So check yes that they are graduating, and then check yes that they're staying on as UMass faculty.
Okay, thank you. All set.
All righty. Back up here and minimize that. Okay. So once all of the status sheets are submitted, I pull everything apart and dump it into one big old spreadsheet. And the GME office uses that for all of these different things. Reappointments, terminations, off-cycle promotions, change of programs, leave of absence, chief residence, license renewals, and then the yes answers for the limited licenses, full license application statuses, and then any change of program malpractice forms. So that's why we count on you guys to make sure, like, it's kind of a two-way street here. This is all the information we have. We need you to just verify, update it, send it back to us so we can collate it all together. And we're on track for the rest of the academic year. As far as that goes as well, reappointment contracts for PGY2s, they will only be assigned to a PGY2 that has taken, passed, and submitted their step 3 score report to GME. This has been a big thing this year with, you know, test centers closing, test centers moving around, things like that. You know, we really need to, that's part of their contract that they have to take, pass, and submit their step 3 score report in order to promote to a PGY3. So if you have anybody that you're unsure about or anything, check in with me. Anyone on your list whose name is highlighted in yellow, those are folks that are on our step 3 list that we either haven't gotten their score reports, they haven't taken it yet, anything like that. So, and I've been in contact with a handful of you on that. So if you have any questions about it, obviously just reach out.
Yeah, and I would say if you have anyone that falls into that category, that they should have reached out to Dr. DeMarco at this point, because I think we encourage trainees to have done, you know, taken their step 3 exam by the end of December, so that we know in January everyone that is reappointing successfully. We've had a handful of folks that haven't been able to take the test, had, you know, some challenges like Cassie described, but we're seeing less of that, you know, now that COVID has sort of dwindled. It's not as common of an issue for people to have test centers closing and things like that. So if they have to have a valid reason for why they have not done it, and if you have anyone that falls into that category that Dr. DeMarco is not aware of, please make sure that they reach out sooner than later.
So once we get all of our spreadsheets in order, what's going to happen next is GME is going to roll over trainees in MedHub. So that means what I'm going to do is go, you know, program by program, who's promoting. and roll them over. So that way they'll have a new training history entry. So anyone that is a PGY1 will now have a PGY2 training history entry. And anyone that's graduating or terminating, changing programs, all of that's GME is gonna take care of all of that in MedHub. You may have noticed that there is a graduation termination wizard and a resident advancement wizard in MedHub. Do not touch these. Please, please, please do not touch these. Do not worry about those. That is what GME will take care of. Everything has to be done in a particular order, in a particular way. So please do not touch those. The only wizard that you will need to worry about is running the new schedule wizard and the schedule population wizard. And that happens in April. So, and I'll go over it then. Don't have to worry about it until then. All contracts are going to be pushed out through MedHub, as always. The top portion of the contract will be filled in via the data put into MedHub, or sometimes there's, if there's a difference in the PGY level or the stipend, we have to edit that ourselves. But anything you see here that's underlined is all pulled straight from MedHub and populated into the reappointment contract. Once contracts are assigned to the reappointing trainees, they'll receive a notification right here, unsigned contract on their urgent, under their urgent tasks. This is what it'll look like. They'll get this here. These additional documents may or may not be there. I don't think it worked out well for us last year, so we might not be doing it then that way. So all the trainee has to do is click on review contract. It won't let them sign unless they click on review contract. They can look at it. Encourage them to look at it. If they have any questions, if they see something that doesn't look right, obviously reach out right away and I can get that fixed. And then once they do review it and they look it over, they have to type their name in this box here exactly as it appears right here. So if I was typing it, it would be Cassandra, open parenthesis, test resident, close parenthesis. You have to type it exactly how it says there, and that's their signature. And then they sign their contract, and that's all set. Once the trainee signs their contract, a notification gets sent to the program director to approve contracts. These can be done in bulk. Please remind your PD to log in a couple of times a week to make sure they approve all contracts. Remind your trainees to sign them. We follow along. I check them off once they get signed in my big, huge spreadsheet. So we're on top of it, but make sure that's getting done. Once the PD approves a contract, Melissa goes in, she gets a notification, she signs off on the contract. If a trainee is changing programs, the approval notification will go to the new programs PD for approval. So if someone's going from internal medicine, that resident signs, the notification is going to go to, cardiology, or if they're changing programs to a cardiovascular, that PD will get will have to sign the contract. GME keeps tabs on the process and will send reminders. Once a contract is signed and approved and fully executed, signed PDF copies can be downloaded by the coordinator or the trainee from the training history tab. So there's a training history tab in their profile. You go to their PGY2 year, you see this thing right here, signed contract. You can click on that and there's their contract. There's a copy of their contract if they need that for, mortgages or whatever. You do not need to save these and upload them to MedHub. They're already here, they're saved. So you don't have to worry about that. Target date for completion of all signed agreements is April 1st. And GME will take care of forwarding any signed copies to Kate Carroll and the ISO team for anybody that's on a visa. Again, step 3 policy for reappointment. I think we kind of went over most of this stuff. If you want more information on the step 3 policy, it can be found in resources and documents, GME policies. It's in there. Please follow up with your current PGY ones to let them know. We really encourage you to take your step 3 before the end of December of your PGY2 year. Mostly because, heaven forbid they don't pass, then they have to reschedule. That could take a couple of months. It takes a couple of months to get your score back as well sometimes. So with the timing and everything, we really strongly recommend that by the end of December of their PGY 2-year, they have taken and passed their step 3. And that's USMLE or COMLEX. PPD TST tests. I don't think we did that last year. Deborah, do you remember? We didn't do TB testing last year, right?
That is correct.
And I think we're sticking with that this year.
Correct.
Fantastic. So you guys can completely forget
As far
this
as I
slide.
know, I have not heard otherwise.
As far as we know, no more TB testing. If anything changes, y'all will be the first to know.
For current residents, new
Correct,
incoming
yes.
will be required, but
So along with reappointment contracts, a malpractice self-insurance form and lab coat and scrubs order are also required for those changing programs. So if you're going from internal medicine to cardiology, you need a new malpractice because the malpractice rider you're under still says internal medicine. If you're in cardiology, you get a different kind of rider. So they will need to fill that out. Again, that's the information that I collect off of my spreadsheet. Reach out to the trainees directly. If you know of anyone that's changing programs, make sure you send them that. And same thing with the lab coat scrub order. Megan's handling that again for this upcoming academic year. We're still working out the fine tuning that right now. So don't have to worry about that too much right now. You'll get a big old notification when that link is ready.
And sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Can we wait for, if we want to change like what our program orders for people, we just wait until we get closer to then?
Well, when it comes to lab coats, this is what GME will provide.
Yeah,
What do you mean you want to change?
we just don't want lab coats anymore for my fellows.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I
Like-
mean, you don't have to order them.
Okay,
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
I know there's some programs, like I know anesthesia stopped ordering them because they order them within the department and they have them laundered. So they have like a rotating
yeah,
stash of them.
yeah.
So
No, I just got a lot of feedback about it this last year, so that's fine.
yeah, no
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, so Jen, I would send an email to Megan, just letting her know that you're not going to need lab coats this year, and we can just sort of keep that in a folder so that when we get ready to do it, you know,
You guys won't be on the list.
yeah,
Okay.
we won't automatically, we won't be like, oh we forgot to include emergency
Yeah, yeah.
medicine. They're not here for lab coats, and then add them in so that we have
Okay.
to return them. So just, it'll be a good practice just to send her a note.
Okay, sounds good.
Any trainees who are changing programs do not need to attend the like big OGME orientation. There may be they may need specialty specific IS training. So let GME know so we can get this incorporated into the new incoming orientation. We generally have a good idea of like, you know, if someone's going from, I don't know, surgery into pathology, whatever, they might need a different set of IS training, especially when it comes to Epic, and we can get that fit into new incoming orientation. So the malpractice form, I went through all of the programs last year and made templates for every single program, because I know everybody fills out these sections a little differently. Everything from here on down is filled out specifically for a program. So there are templates for all of these. You can go to job aids and resources, miscellaneous forms, malpractice, self-insurance templates. Just find your program, and that's the one that, or the program that the person's going into, that's the one that they need to fill out. So really, these are all fillable PDF forms. So the only sections that need to be filled out are the name, date program ends, the effective date of appointment. This is the original start date to UMass, not the start date of their new program. Their Mass license and expiration. Doesn't matter if it's their limited license and it expires at the end of this academic year, put that number in there. Check the box for program change. There's a question on the second page about board certification, yes or no. 13 is, have you had any malpractice claims? And then their signature. Everything else is filled out for them. There's no need for them to fill anything else out. And then once that's done, send those back to me. So lab coat scrubs ordering, any trainee changing programs from residency to residency, residency to fellowship. They'll need to order new scrubs and lab coats. We're kind of shooting, I believe we said April 15th is when we're shooting for our deadline. Megan's going to follow up with all of you. There is a new sizing information chart. And like we said, we're trying to figure out a more streamlined way to collect up orders. So as soon as that's sorted out, Megan's going to get in touch with all of you. GME will provide the following numbers for trainees in different programs. Again, if your department does not want to order lab coats and or scrubs, let Megan know. An email will be sent to all coordinators once I push out the reappointment contracts. All forms and instructions discussed in this session, including these slides and recording, can be found in MedHub. I'll save this recording and put it with this meeting and in this folder specifically, licensing and reappointment. So yeah, that's it for that. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. No, everybody good? Yay. Like I said, as soon as you're done with your status sheet, shoot me a message, let me know that you're all set and I can lock it and start pulling that information. If it's once it's locked and you do happen to have a change or anything, just reach out to me, let me know. Let me know about chiefs. Yeah, and when it comes to the full license stuff, please make sure you check with your folks that they look at the instructions in MedHub when it comes to full licensing. Deb Rollo did redo how the instructions are a little bit to try to incorporate as much as we know of the online system. We both sat through a training session on it last couple of weeks ago, and it looks pretty good. So yeah, we'll have more information on that as soon as that's ready to go. Make sure you tell your trainees if they do apply for a full license, they need to send us a copy of their application. We need to have that on file. I think that's it. Unless I'm missing anything, Deb, Melissa.
Chat.
Oh, I saw it.
No, I think you covered everything, Cassie. So yeah, unless there's questions, Deb, I don't know if you wanted to just say anything more about licensing. I don't know if there's anything more to say. Hopefully, like you
Right.
said, by January, you might have more info to present, but
Yeah, so
Okay.
the board extended their launch a couple weeks into January.
Of
And
course.
even then, until it actually goes live, there could still be more extensions. Hopefully not. The full license application is now online. That one is doing well. So anybody who is going to apply for a full can do that already online. They don't accept paper for that, I don't believe, any longer. Once I know more on the limited license renewals and the initial applications, I will let you know. Hopefully we'll know everything by the January meeting. That's really about all I have. I did think of one thing for reappointment, and you may have already received notice on it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa. If any resident or fellow is not going to reappoint due to their, learning and their training isn't up to par to go to the next PGY level or disciplinary action or anything, GME needs to be notified by the end of December. So I just wanted to bring that up again.
Yes, please.
So if they're if they were normally going to promote to a 3, but they're gonna be held back a year and stay at a 2. That's one of the things that we need to know about by the end of this month, so. That was it.
Yeah, if there's anything that you aren't sure if GME is on the loop, in the loop on or not, just shoot us a message. So that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Cassie. So I have a few updates, but I just want to ask one more time if there's any questions. Oh, so Hilda has a question. Let me just. Does that include residents who have not yet received their step 3 scores?
No, it does not. Because we as long as we know that they took their test by the end of December and they're awaiting the scores, you can let us know as soon as you find out. One of the big reasons why we like them to take it before the end of December is in case they get their results back in March, April, and find out they did not pass, and then they have to reschedule, take it again. And in that case, they would not promote until they receive the passing score.
Any other questions before we switch gears? Okay, if anyone thinks of anything while we move on, feel free to put it in the chat, and Monique, myself, Cassie, Deb will see it and respond. So I just have a few reminders, updates to share with you all. For those of you who attended the GMEC meeting a couple weeks ago, Dr. DeMarco shared at that time that the ALT option for time reporting related to COVID absences was going to be sunsetting on January 6th. So I know, we've been at this for, 2 years, and you guys have been good about filling out that additional timesheet, letting me know, and letting Alex Johnson and HR know when residents or fellows are out with COVID. So because we're sunsetting this process, up until January 6th, you will still be able to submit an ALT time if a resident is out COVID positive or is out quarantining, awaiting test results. After January 6th, any time related to COVID absence would be reported as sick time in HR Direct. So I just wanted to mention that, and if you could remind your residents about it as well. Dr. DeMarco sent a memo out to them so they know this is happening, and this was done, in collaboration with the CIR union. Wanted to mention briefly Uber and Lyft reimbursement. So this is a benefit that's been in place for several years. It was an ACGME recommendation to provide Uber Lyft transportation reimbursement for residents who are too fatigued to drive home after working a post-call overnight shift. It's been underutilized, but has since we've seen an uptick in usage. And I have added on to the document that's in MedHub, which outlines the process for how someone would go about getting reimbursed when they use Uber or Lyft. I've added some guidelines just to be really clear with folks about what can and can't be done. So we want residents and fellows to use this option, but it is only for those who are too fatigued to drive. So I say that because, it should not be used because the car is in the at the mechanic because it's having issues. So I'm going to Uber to work and Uber home. We have sometimes instances when residents are first starting out that maybe they are having issues getting a Massachusetts driver's license. So they don't have transportation. It's not meant for those situations. So it is really for people who are not able to drive home because they're just, too tired to do so safely. The process is very simple. Whoever in your department handles the PeopleSoft reimbursements, they prepare the reimbursement, send me a copy of the expense report along with the receipts. There should be a round trip set of receipts, so I should be able to see that they left the hospital at this time in the morning and got home and then took Uber back to the hospital, whichever day, to get their car. I then just send an approval email back to the preparer to say that GME approves this because it comes out of our budget. They attach that as an approval they upload it with the PeopleSoft in the PeopleSoft expense module, and it gets reimbursed to them, shows up as reimbursement in their paycheck. We are adding into the guidelines as well. There's been question about gratuity. We will cover a 20% gratuity for those who offer one, but we've seen, people doing like 30% or 35%. And so we would not be covering anything more than 20%. Are there any questions about it? Because like I said, I know I've been working with a lot of you recently who've had questions about it.
I have one random question. I have a trainee in particular that just assumes she will be fatigued. So she'll take anytime she's working a 24, she just assumes she'll be fatigued. So she'll take an Uber in, and then we'll take one home.
Yeah.
Is that something you guys will be paying attention to? She's been reimbursed for all of her trips. I just want to give her a heads up if that is something you'll be paying attention to, that the Uber trip, the first date should be from the hospital to home and
Correct.
then vice versa. Okay,
Correct.
that's fair.
Yeah. And so, like I said, we have not seen a lot of usage with it. So the ones that were coming in, we've been sort of just paying them because they were few and far between. And we felt like if people felt they needed to use it, fine. Now that there's being more, now that more and more people are using it, the reviews have then caused additional questions. So, and, I think one of the guidelines as well is, to always just try and cost compare Uber versus Lyft, because you may find that Uber is set one price, but Lyft may be a little bit less expensive. There are times when it's going to be more pricey if it's, a high traffic time of the morning or weather is bad, things of that nature. So we understand that that's going to happen, but we just ask that people, use both options just to make sure you're picking the most cost effective. So any other questions about that? Okay. Wanted to mention leave of absence. Cassie recently updated our leave of absence form. So there is a new version of the form that's in MedHub. And we kind of went back to our old form where we asked how the leave was going to be paid if they were using accruals. So we wanted to know what their intention was in terms of, I'm using this many days of sick time, I'm using this many days of vacation time. Basically, when I have been informed that someone's going to take a leave of absence, they have questions, I usually pull their accruals and communicate with them directly and say, hey, this is what your bank looks like. And if you're going on a maternity leave, you typically want to use sick time first, then your vacation time, then your personal time. And I sort of work out with them what would make sense, leaving it up to them of how they're going to do it. But we want to now know exactly how they want to have it reported. And like I said, my communication with the coordinators and that person who's taking the leave would sort of outline this. And then if you're a coordinator who's not your timekeeper, you would probably need to pass that information on to the timekeeper to say, when John goes out on his paternity leave, he's going to use 5 days of sick time and 5 days of vacation time. If we leave it up to them and they report it as 5 days of sick time, as Cassie mentioned during the reappointment and the leave of absence part of our presentation, if they report it as 10 days of sick time for that 2-week paternity leave, it is reportable to the Board of Registration in Medicine. Doing it the other way, 5 days of sick and 5 days of vacation would mean that 2-week leave would not be reportable to the board. For some folks, that's really important. For others, it's not. But we want to be really transparent about how the time is getting reported. And then Cassie's showing you the form, right now she made it have fillable fields. Should be a lot easier for people to just sort of click, and we got rid of some of the unnecessary information that used to be in the header. And then at the bottom, it has the spot for signatures. So it should be a little bit more user-friendly for you. And we're still asking people to make sure that when folks do return from a leave of absence and you notify GME that they have returned, that the timekeeper in your program still puts in regular time for them for at least a full pay period after they've returned. Typically when they're out or you're taking time, that's the only time you're really having to put in accruals, and regular time should be paid out. But when they go on leave, HR turns off their time. And so if it doesn't get turned back on, when we notify HR, if they don't do it in a really quick fashion, there's a chance that that person may not get paid. So we're trying to circumvent that and trying to avoid having to do emergency checks for folks. So we're just saying, as a good rule of thumb, enter in the regular time once they've returned, just to ensure that there's not going to be any issues with them getting paid for their time. If someone does not get paid and there's a problem with that, reach out to me immediately, because we can work with payroll to get someone's time fixed very quickly and get a emergency check out to them. So they should never go unpaid when there's an administrative or clerical error like that. So please keep that in mind. And we're working with HR just to try and figure out how we can make the process work a little bit more efficiently, where we aren't seeing these, issues with people not being returned from leave in a timely way.
And just to follow up on the leave stuff, please make sure you're letting me know when people are returning. I keep a spreadsheet and I have a pretty generally good idea of when people are returning, but right now I have like 12 or 15 people out and they all come back at different times. So it's very, very helpful to, even just a couple days before or something like that, you have to let me know when somebody returns. That's part of the coordinator's job. You got to send me the paperwork. You got to let me know when they're returning. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So any questions about leave of absence? Hilda?
So I have a resident that's going to be going out in February, and she's going to be out for about 28 days straight. Am I to use her sick time before her sick time before her vacation time, and then kick in her vacation time when she goes to a reduced schedule?
Is she's going out for a medical, not a maternity or a medical leave?
Maternity, yeah.
Yeah, so she should be using sick time first. So she should use that and then use her vacation time. Yeah. I mean, she can leave. I think you have to use all of your sick time and then go into your vacation time.
Okay.
So because that's the one time she's able to use that much time is after when you're on a medical leave or you've had a baby within the first 8 weeks, you're eligible to use your sick time. So because they typically have more sick time, right, because it carries over year to year and the vacation time doesn't, it's to her benefit to get 100% of her pay using as much of her sick time as she can, and then using less of her vacation time, thereby leaving a few weeks, hopefully. So when she returns, if she needs to take time for her own vacation, if she needs to take time for doctor's appointments for her, for the baby, she still has time that she can take along with her personal time.
Yeah, Monique, she's taking 28 days off straight, and then she's going to a reduced schedule, 4 days off, and then she's going a little bit more reduced. She's splitting it between her and her partner. I just wanted to clarify that because I made a mistake with that before and it was brought to my attention. I just wanted to make sure I get it right this time.
Is this the one that we talked about before, the one that you and I worked on, Hilda, or is a different
Yes.
person? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think we worked it out. Like, I think we wrote out how it should be reported. And that one, I think I had to deal with HR just to make sure that it was okay, because when she went to a reduced schedule, I wanted to make sure she could use sick time again.
Yes.
Yes, and they said that that was fine, so.
And
I
this
have
is
a
reported to the-
random, sorry, Hilda, I have a random question. If they're partners and they're both employed by UMass and do they get 8 weeks each?
I want to say that they don't.
Okay, I didn't think so, but.
That they don't. I think that's not something that we have enforced, although I think it is part of the policy. So I don't know if I realized that they were partners. I know Marilyn has mentioned that before, that it's sort of an unfair criteria, because if they worked at different institutions, they would each get the same amount of time to be used. And so now, because they're employed by the same employer, they're technically being penalized in a way and not being able to both use the maximum amount of time allowed for them. So yeah, so Hilda, if we want to talk about that offline, we can look at the policy and make sure that everything's going to work out for that resident.
Okay, absolutely. Thanks, Melissa.
Yep. Anything else leave of absence related? Okay. The only other two quick things, budget letters will be coming out. I'll be preparing those. I presented the position budget at the GMEC meeting a couple of weeks ago. Everything with that will be finalized, beginning of January. There was one program that we were still working on, and the budget letters will be created using that data from that spreadsheet. So if you look at it and see something that was a mistake, please reach out to me. Though I think I've had conversations with, the few programs where there were things that needed to be edited prior to the vote. So you'll be expecting those letters. I'll CC, the copies go to you, the program director, and the department administrator in your program. So those should be available, I would say, by the middle of January. And then, as we are planning for orientation 2023, I'm going to send you all an email that has sort of the tentative dates that we're planning for all the certification trainings, the GME orientations, the GME welcome event, and the draft of the schedule is now in the hands of the IS leader, and they are starting to plug in their IS training dates. We anticipate that there will be a few more EPIC modules that will be eligible for that sort of half-day training. So if you recall last year, the ambulatory modules allowed people to, with prior EPIC experience, to essentially test out of a full day of IS training. So they would come in the morning, they would do their fingerprinting, they would hear about MedHub from Cassie, they would do all of like the general orientation stuff with the IS team, and then they did not have to stay for the actual EPIC training. So they are looking to roll that out possibly with emergency medicine and possibly surgery. So more to come on that, but it would be nice when we get to that point where there's more programs that are eligible for it, because it does, you know, free them up to do other things. So I will send out those dates as we have them right now. I can tell you GME orientation is going to be June 29th for residents, July 3rd for fellows, and then the welcome event, which is kind of to be determined. We're not sure if we're going to do a luncheon, if it will be live or through Zoom, but we're going to hold that on June 30th. So basically the first, you know, week and a half. So June 16th is a Friday. I think that starts BLS training. And then up until the 29th, it's going to be all of the certification courses and any IS training that needs to be done. And that's when you all will be planning your program specific orientation events. And then the GME orientation and all of our events will sort of be at the end of that week. July 1st is on a Saturday this year, and we're aware that that's going to be challenging for some programs. And so I'm working with IS to see what is possible. It could be that we'd be able to train folks on Saturday, July 1st. It would be a little bit of a different model than what we've had, but if it works for people and gets people ready to work quicker, they're exploring that option. So I will keep you guys posted on that, but I will send you an email with those dates just so you sort of have a skeleton of what things are sort of looking like. And then hopefully, you know, sometime right before match day, I'm aiming beginning of March to actually have the schedule ready for you to at least have that you can start providing it to the new people coming in. So any questions about that? And I think that was my last item. So happy to take questions on anything, or if something else has come up, Monique, that you want us to talk about.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. We had looked at what we discussed last year in November and December, and I shared that with you in the email, and I think we covered all of those bases.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one thing is in January, we are going to do that PLA, because Monique, that was in your list. So we are going to do a program letter of agreement sort of workshop. Cassie and I'll sort of present, you know, why we have to do program letters of agreement, which sites we have master affiliation agreements with, when an addendum is needed versus a full PLA, and then sort of re-review the new process of putting those into MedHub. Things have been going pretty well. There's been some hiccups at certain times with certain sites that have issues with the signing process or need an additional signatory or need to. Biggest problem we've had is people putting in information like email addresses and it's not correct. And that's a huge problem because once the workflow gets kicked off, you can't just go in and fix the email address. We basically have to delete it, stop it, and you have to redo it. So that would be one area where I would sort of ask that you be really careful when you're putting in that information and that you're 100% sure that that's the correct person and that's the correct email address to use. So in January, we'll present that. We're also going to present a modified version of that at GMEC because we think it's really important for the program directors to hear the process and be reminded of what's involved. We're also experiencing residents who aren't really, it doesn't appear to us that are communicating with their program in terms of where they're going to do this offsite rotation and who's helping them create these learning objectives and their goals and clinical responsibilities and academic responsibilities. So just sort of reiterating what that process is, what involvement there should be from the program, just to help it kind of run more smoothly. MedHub is really helping streamline the process. But we're tweaking things as we go along based on, what we're learning. And we're also seeing an uptick in international PLAs, which is, a whole new world, because since I started in GME, it's been COVID. So no one was traveling, no one was doing anything. And we're working now with Teresa Zash, who handles all of our international agreements, and trying to make sure that we have a similar process for those that will work for folks, as we're seeing more of those. So that will be coming in January. And so hopefully everybody will be able to attend that. And then also one more quick thing, Cassie has been hosting for our GME office what we're calling MedHub Mondays. So it's a 30-minute session on Mondays where we're just doing a general overview of MedHub, what it can do, how to run certain reports, what functionality is there that we may not have utilized, or understand even what some of the functionality is. We found it really helpful, and we're thinking that we're going to roll it out to all coordinators, sometime in 2023. We're kind of working out those details. We're envisioning it to be sort of a brown bag. Maybe we do it at lunchtime and people can sort of just join. We'll have sort of set agendas per month. We've been doing them like every 2 weeks. So maybe we do them once a month with the coordinators, and some days there'll be, participant choice. They're not all going to be open for general conversation, because, we could go off the rails, because MedHub can do so much that we probably wouldn't be able to cover everyone's questions. But for participant choice, people could kind of come and say like, hey, this month I really want, maybe Cassie can go over this particular piece. So we think that might be really helpful for people. And we're excited to sort of roll that out, and we'll be looking for feedback, from you all. So Deb, Cassie, anything else that I might have missed?
I had one quick question, and this was also from, pulled from last year.
Yeah.
Last year, we touched base on visiting rotations. Will Cassie's PLA piece in January have any info on visiting rotations, or is that something that maybe we can just have Deb discuss at the January coordinator meeting? Are there any updates in terms of trainees visiting? I know we have to give you guys about a 3-month lead time to get all of the documentation done. I just didn't know if there was any other tweaks to that.
So
We
have-
have not
we
yet
haven't-
figured out how to put it into MedHub in the best way yet, but I know we're like dangerously close to figuring that one out. If you do have visiting residents, Deb Rollo's still your go-to person on that, because there's all sorts of stuff that she needs.
Yeah, I mean, if we
there's
can get,
really
if we can,
Sorry,
we
go
can-
ahead, Melissa.
yeah, I was just going to say, if we can figure out how to get them into MedHub, it's going to make, Deb's life a whole lot easier, and just in general. But for right now, the process is still using the paper 3-way agreement, which is with, the sponsor institution, UMass Chan, and UMass Memorial Medical Center. So we're still using that same template, but we also have instances where we have master agreements with some institutions for visitors, and addendums only are required. So I guess we may want to just present the visiting resident process, I think, at the coordinator portion of the meeting, so as to not confuse it too much, I think, with the part that Cassie's doing, since we're not using MedHub for it. I don't know if you agree with that, Deb, but I think it would make sense to sort of keep them separate for now.
I agree. But the whole visiting resident process has not changed. I
Okay.
still like at least 3 months if they're out of state, and 1 month if they're in state. Even closer to 3 months, even if they're in state, is extremely helpful. Right now, it has skyrocketed. We have a lot of visiting residents right now. And some I find out 2 weeks before, and I do my best to push them through, but it does add, it is time consuming to get clearances and approvals. So
The
if
only
anyone
piece
has
that
a-
has changed a tiny bit, which we did bring up at GMEC like Deb said, it's really time consuming getting out of state folks licenses. So we have kind of scaled back or eliminated, I guess, 2-week electives for out of state rotators. So if someone wants to come here to do an elective rotation, it would be a minimum of 4 weeks. I think we agreed. So because just the whole licensing process in itself is really time consuming. So, and we weren't getting a lot of them that were 2 weeks, but we were getting a few, you know, people coming from California and Texas that wanted to just come for sometimes not even 2 weeks. So it just seemed like a lot of work, and it's actually a large expense for them for that small amount of time. So that would be the only thing that's changed, I think, with the visiting residents.
So to reconfirm, the new thing is that has to be 4 weeks for them to do a rotation.
If they're coming from out of state.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're in state already, there's no problem with them coming for 2 weeks. But yeah, if they're coming from out of state and they're going to need a Massachusetts license in order to do the rotation, we're asking that it be a 4-week rotation.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, like I said, we brought it up at GMEC with all the program directors because we wanted to make sure there wasn't a coup where everyone's like, wait a minute, of course we want these people and we have, and, you know, out of the 67 people that were online, nobody had any issues. And Dr. DeMarco asked folks to follow up with her offline, you know, if they determined that it would be an issue for them. And we didn't hear from anyone. So we're sort of moving in that direction.
And I also did let another coordinator know, it can be program specific. If you want to have your own rule for an in-state visitor to be at least 4 weeks, you can certainly do that. I have no problem with it at all. So I know some programs, you know, they're even too busy to allow like a 1 or 2 week rotation. And you can certainly make that choice for your program.
Any other questions? I really appreciate all of you.
Yes,
making
Hilda's
time
got
to
a
come.
question. Hilda.
I'm sorry. I was a little bit distracted. My aunt was talking to me, so I missed the, I apologize. I missed the Med Hub Mondays every 2 weeks. When are you thinking about offering that to all coordinators?
We haven't come up with a date. I don't know, Cassie, I don't know, maybe like February, might not be in January. I think we might want to take.
Yeah, I think
January to sort of get
February.
yeah. And, you know, like I said, we're doing them right now in our GME office every 2 weeks. Maybe we'll just do them. I don't know. We may do them once a month. I'm not really sure. So we're still working out those details, but it is something that we're planning to roll out in 2023. And we'll do it for a while and we'll get some feedback from people. And if it's really helpful and people are enjoying it, you know, Cassie's willing to do it, we can kind of keep it going.
I like the idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody knows something that, you know, like a good tip that you never found or thought of, and
Mm-hmm.
come together in a group and share ideas and stuff like that. I kind of like it. So I'd be
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah. I mean, that in and of itself might be just a good topic where it's not even Cassie running it, but more of,
Just
hey,
getting
everyone
together.
join, and is there something new that you learned, and just share it with, you know, with other folks who might say, wow, I had no idea I could do that. So yeah, sharing best practices is always a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone joining. I know this is a big vacation week, and, you know, in hindsight, we probably should have moved it up in the month, but it's sort of, you know, lots of stuff going on, and it just sort of we're like, oh, it's the week of in between Christmas and New Year's, and it might be a vacation week. But I appreciate everyone making time to join. I thank you, Cassie, for presenting, and making everything available to you in MedHub, you know, as soon as possible so that you're able to start working on the status sheet and make that January 13th deadline. Please reach out to us if anything comes up, you know, as you're working on things, and, you know, we're happy to help.
All righty.
When
Unless
is our next
anybody-
meeting? Do we know, Monique, our next meeting?
Let me pull it up. The PLA review is on the 12th, and I have our next meeting, should be a Thursday morning, but just. It's actually not on my calendar, so maybe we can schedule that. It should be, the next one should be a Thursday morning. I'm thinking it should probably be
The week of
12th.
GMEC,
I'm sorry?
the week of GMEC, right? Isn't it usually the Thursday after the GMEC meeting when we do it on Thursday?
Yeah, that would be the 17th. So then I'm looking at the 19th. Let me just see.
I already have it on my calendar on the
Yeah, it's already on there.
at 8:30.
Yep, I had it scrolled at the wrong time, so we're correct. It's the 19th at 8:30.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Super
All
duper.
right.
All righty.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate it. Everyone have a happy new year.
Bye.
Thanks, you too.
Bye, guys.